The desperate call the Crystalline Alliance had known peace for 10,000 years. Their ships were works of art, gleaming vessels that sang through space on wings of pure energy. They had never needed weapons beyond simple defensive shields. War was a concept they studied in historical texts, not something they practiced. That changed the day the Devourer Hive arrived. Commander Zara of the Luminary stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Dawn, watching her homeworld burn. Her species, beings of living crystal that resonated with light itself, had never seen such destruction. The Devourer ships were not beautiful. They were practical, efficient, and utterly terrifying. Massive organic vessels that consumed entire planets, breaking them down to their base elements to fuel their endless hunger. The attack had come without warning. One moment, the outer colonies were reporting strange readings at the edge of Alliance space. The next, entire systems were going dark. The Devourers didn't negotiate. They didn't communicate. They simply consumed everything in their path, leaving nothing but empty space where thriving worlds once orbited. Zara's crystalline form flickered with distress as another report came through. The Aurelia system had fallen. 20 billion souls gone in less than a standard rotation. The Alliance fleet, such as it was, had tried to mount a defense. Their energy weapons, designed to disable and deter, barely scratched the thick bioarmor of the Devourer ships. Their defensive shields, meant to turn away asteroids and solar radiation, crumbled like paper before the Devourer's acid weaponry. High Chancellor Vex of the Nebula Touched called an emergency session of the Alliance Council. His gaseous form swirled in agitation as he addressed the gathered representatives. The situation was beyond critical. At the current rate of advancement, the Devourers would reach the Alliance core worlds within 30 cycles. They had perhaps days before total annihilation. The debate raged for hours. Some suggested evacuation, but where could 60 trillion beings flee? Others proposed surrender, but the Devourers had shown no interest in anything but consumption. They were a force of nature, like a plague of locusts sweeping across the galaxy, leaving nothing in their wake. It was Elder Kron of the Silicon-based who spoke the unthinkable. His ancient form, more mineral than flesh after millennia of life, carried weight that silenced the chamber. There was one option they had not considered. One species that might possess the capability to stop the Devourers. The humans of Earth. The Deathworlders who had been observed but never contacted. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Every spacefaring species knew of Earth. It was classified as a Class 2 death world, the highest danger rating possible. Its inhabitants had evolved on a planet where everything seemed designed to kill them. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, even their own planet's weather patterns were lethal. And somehow, impossibly, they had not only survived, but thrived. The humans had been observed from a distance for cycles. Their history was a chronicle of violence that made even the worst periods of Alliance history look peaceful by comparison. They had split the atom and used it as a weapon against their own kind. They had created biological weapons, chemical weapons, and machines designed for no purpose other than to kill more efficiently. They were quarantined not by law but by unanimous agreement. They were too dangerous to contact. But now, faced with extinction, what choice did they have? Zara volunteered to make first contact. If someone had to risk approaching the Deathworlders, it should be someone who had already lost everything. Her homeworld was gone. Consumed by the Devourers 3 cycles ago, she had nothing left to lose. The journey to Earth took 5 cycles using their fastest slip drive technology. As the Eternal Dawn dropped out of slipspace at the edge of Sol system, every sensor on the ship screamed warnings. The entire system was weaponized. Defensive platforms orbited every major body. Missile silos dotted the moons. Ships that were clearly military in nature patrolled in organized formations. This was not a peaceful system. This was a fortress. Within minutes of their arrival, the Eternal Dawn was surrounded by human vessels. They were not beautiful like Alliance ships. They were angular, aggressive, bristling with weapon systems that Zara's scanners couldn't even identify. A communication channel opened and Zara found herself looking at her first human. Admiral Sarah Chen was not what Zara expected. The human was smaller than most Alliance species, with no natural armor, no claws, no obvious defensive adaptations. But her eyes were what caught Zara's attention. They were the eyes of a predator, constantly assessing, evaluating, calculating threat levels and response options. The conversation was brief. Zara explained the situation, the devourer threat, the billions already dead, the trillions more who would die without help. She expected questions, negotiations, perhaps demands for payment or technology exchange. Instead, Admiral Chen asked only 3 questions. How many enemy ships? What were their capabilities? How long did they have? When Zara finished answering, Admiral Chen was quiet for exactly 10 seconds. Then she spoke words that would echo through Alliance history. We'll need 72 hours to mobilize the full fleet. The advance force can be at your position in 36. Send us everything you have on these devourers. We'll handle the rest. The human admiral cut the communication without ceremony. Zara stood in shocked silence. She had expected reluctance, fear, perhaps outright refusal. She had not expected immediate, unquestioning military commitment. As the eternal dawn turned to return to Alliance space, Zara's sensors detected movement throughout the Sol system. Ships were launching from Earth, from Mars, from the moons of Jupiter. The humans were mobilizing for war, and they were doing it with an efficiency that was terrifying to witness. The Alliance Council was in session when Zara's report arrived. The news that humans had agreed to help was met with a mixture of relief and fear. Relief that someone might be able to stop the devourers. Fear of what they might have unleashed by inviting the Deathworlders into their space. Elder Kron voiced what many were thinking. They had asked monsters to fight monsters. The question was, which monster would prove more dangerous in the end? As the Alliance prepared for the arrival of human forces, reports continued to stream in from the front lines. 2 more systems had fallen. The devourers were adapting, learning from each encounter. Their ships were becoming more efficient, their consumption faster. Time was running out. Humanity's answer. 36 hours after first contact, space itself seemed to scream as the human advance fleet tore into reality at the edge of Alliance space. Commander Zara watched from her observation deck as ship after ship materialized. These were not the exploratory or diplomatic vessels the Alliance employed. These were instruments of war, refined and perfected through millennia of human conflict. The lead ship, the UNSS Prometheus, was a kilometer-long testament to human engineering. Its hull was not smooth or elegant. It was layered, scarred, and reinforced. Weapon ports dotted every surface. Fighter bays ran along its flanks. It looked like what it was, a mobile fortress designed to deliver devastation. Admiral Chen commanded from the Prometheus bridge, surrounded by displays showing tactical data that would have overwhelmed most Alliance officers. Humans, Zara learned, could process multiple information streams simultaneously, a gift from their evolution on a world where threats came from every direction. Chen absorbed the data with casual efficiency while issuing rapid-fire orders to her fleet. The human tactical assessment was blunt. The Alliance had been fighting defensively, trying to protect rather than destroy. It was a losing strategy against an enemy that viewed everything as food. The humans proposed something different. They would not defend. They would attack. They would find the Devourer fleet and eliminate it completely. High Chancellor Vex was horrified when he learned of the human battle plan. They intended to use weapons that had been banned by every civilized species. Antimatter bombs, relativistic kill vehicles, something called a gray goo scenario that Vex didn't even want to understand. The humans spoke casually of genocide, of the complete elimination of the devourer species. Admiral Chen's response to the Alliance's moral objections was characteristically human. You called us because your way wasn't working. Let us work our way. You can debate ethics when you're not extinct. The human fleet moved with terrifying coordination toward the front lines. They didn't wait for the devourers to attack. They hunted them. Scout ships equipped with technology that seemed to violate several laws of physics tracked devourer movement patterns. Within hours, they had located the main devourer fleet. A massive armada of 10,000 bioships preparing to attack the Alliance core worlds. What happened next would be remembered as the Battle of the Void, though battle was perhaps too generous a term. It was more accurate to call it an execution. The humans didn't engage in ship-to-ship combat. They didn't give the devourers a chance to adapt or learn. They simply eliminated them. The first wave was relativistic missiles. Chunks of metal accelerated to 90% of light speed. They punched through devourer bioarmor like it was tissue paper. The second wave was antimatter warheads, each one capable of cracking a moon. The third wave was something the humans called nanite swarms, microscopic machines that consumed devourer ships from the inside out, turning their own feeding strategy against them. In less than 6 hours, the Devourer fleet was gone. Not defeated, not driven back, simply gone. 10,000 ships reduced to expanding clouds of atoms. The few Devourers that attempted to flee were hunted down by human fighter craft, with a methodical efficiency that made Zara's crystalline form resonate with unease. But the humans weren't finished. Admiral Chen announced that they would be tracking the Devourers back to their home systems. The threat would be eliminated at its source. When the Alliance Council protested, citing laws about genocide and the preservation of all sentient life, Chen's response was cold and practical. These creatures have consumed billions of your people. They will consume billions more if given the chance. We can end them now permanently, or you can fight them again in a few centuries when they've rebuilt. Your choice, but we know which option keeps you alive. The human fleet departed for Devourer space, leaving behind a small contingent to help the Alliance rebuild their defenses. What they found in Devourer space shocked even the battle-hardened human forces. Entire sectors stripped of all matter, stars dimmed from having their energy harvested, a civilization that existed only to consume and expand. The humans spent 3 weeks systematically destroying every Devourer hive, every ship, every facility capable of supporting their species. They used weapons that the Alliance couldn't even comprehend. Singularity bombs that created temporary black holes. Stellar igniters that caused stars to go nova. Something called a causality weapon that seemed to erase things from existence itself. When they returned to Alliance space, the human fleet was met with a mixture of gratitude and terror. They had saved the Alliance, but they had also demonstrated a capacity for destruction that made the Devourers look almost tame by comparison. The peaceful species of the Alliance now knew that somewhere in the galaxy lived a species that could end them all if it chose to. Admiral Chen met with the Alliance Council one final time before the human fleet departed. Her words would be remembered and debated for generations. We are what our world made us, survivors, fighters, killers when we need to be. You called us monsters, and maybe we are, but we're monsters who chose to help you. Remember that. We could have let the Devourers consume you, and then taken your resources for ourselves. Instead, we came when you called. We bled for strangers. That's what makes us human. The human fleet departed as suddenly as they had arrived, leaving behind only a small diplomatic contingent and a promise. If the Alliance ever faced extinction again, Earth would answer the call. The Deathworlders would come with their terrible weapons and their willingness to do what others could not. In the cycles that followed, the Alliance rebuilt. New defense stations were constructed using principles learned from observing human technology. A new military doctrine was developed, one that acknowledged that sometimes preservation of life meant being willing to take life. The peaceful Alliance had learned a hard lesson about the nature of the universe. But perhaps the most important change was the end of Earth's quarantine. The humans were invited to join the Alliance, to trade, to share knowledge, to be part of the galactic community. Many species remained wary of them, these Deathworlders who had evolved on a planet that seemed designed to create the perfect warriors. But they were no longer seen as monsters to be avoided. They were seen as what they truly were: protectors, guardians who stood ready in the darkness, willing to become monsters so that others could remain civilized. The Alliance had asked for help, and the Deathworlder fleet had responded with fire. In doing so, they had saved 60 trillion lives and earned a place among the stars. The galaxy was safer with humans in it, even if it was also more dangerous. That paradox, Zara reflected, was perhaps the most human thing of all.